Once called the richest hill on earth, this is now a city whose main attraction is a Superfund site, Butte, the city that ate itself. For a time, it was Montana's Metropolis, the largest and most diverse city between San Francisco and Chicago. And then it wasn't. The boom and bust of mining, literally and figuratively, ate this place alive. How does a city go from being one of the richest in America to this? It all begins with copper. These hills were full of the stuff, and one company in particular was king, the Anaconda Mining Company. Founded in the nearby town of Anaconda in the 1880s, they were able to make this region extremely prosperous, helping to power the Industrial Revolution. Immigrants from Europe and Asia came to work in the mines: Irish, Italians, Chinese, and many others. While I was in Butte, an old man once told me that at one point the signs in every business were printed in 16 different languages. I don't know how true this is, but every local has a story to tell about the former diversity of this place. Although now its residents are 94% white and American-born, mostly Irish Catholic. In fact, it has the highest percentage of Irish Americans of any city in the country, even more than Boston. Many residents are descended from those original miners who worked underground in dreadful conditions. Because of the Anaconda Company's prevalence in the city, unions and the mining company battled constantly for power. But in the end, Anaconda dominated the state's politics, owning many Montana newspapers, requiring journalists to never print anything critical of their business. Butte's labor movement was among the strongest in the nation. Workers fought low wages, long hours, and dangerous conditions. In 1911, despite fierce opposition from the Anaconda Company, Butte elected one of the first socialist mayors of any major U.S. city at the time, former Unitarian minister Louis J. Duncan. He ran on a platform of equality and justice. During his tenure, he worked to balance the city's budgets, clean the streets, improve working conditions, and reduce the spread of disease. Socialists also won city council seats and many other offices, including city attorney. They were credited for introducing consumer protections and rooting out corruption in the police force. The Socialists generally were seen to have done a good job in the city, and Duncan was re-elected in 1913. But unity didn't last. In 1914, disputes with the radical industrial workers of the world boiled over. Angry miners demanding revolution, not reform, bombed the miners' union hall and completely destroyed it. Soon after, Duncan survived an assassination attempt by an angry miner, killing his attacker in self-defense. The city was plunged into chaos. Riots ensued. The federal government intervened, accusing Duncan of neglecting his duties, failing to stop the violence in Butte, and forcibly removed him from office. Then there's the story of activist and organizer Frank Little. Little was born in Illinois, but lived out his final days in Butte. He was an active member of the Industrial Workers of the World and helped with free speech and labor movements all over the western U.S. While in Butte, he organized the copper miners and led strikes against the Anaconda Company, demanding better working conditions and higher wages. Anaconda had hired private security to physically assault the striking workers, and Little was able to persuade women and workers from other trades to join the miners on the picket lines in solidarity and fight back. In August of 1917, 6 masked men abducted him from the boarding house he was staying at, dragged him to the street, beat him, and lynched him, hanging him from a railroad trestle on the edge of town with a note pinned to his chest, "First and last warning." His killers were never identified or caught. Thousands attended his funeral, and he was laid to rest at Butte's Mountain View Cemetery. Frank Little is still honored today in Butte and across the country as an American hero. Frank was made an example of, used as a warning of what happens when you cross powerful interests, and to the fragmented labor movement, he was made a martyr. This was yet another example of Anaconda's grip on the city and the state as a whole, known to locals as the Copper Collar, the complete political, economic, and social domination by the Anaconda Company. Even in life and death, big business always held the real power in Butte, but Little's death was only one example of how worker solidarity could be broken, and nowhere was this more evident than in Butte's treatment of its Chinese community. Chinese immigrants were present from the city's earliest days, working in the mines alongside Europeans and running businesses to serve the growing town. But labor unions saw them as a threat to to worker solidarity and blamed them for keeping wages low. Chinese workers were excluded from unions, and their shops were boycotted. Combined with legal discrimination, these pressures drove most Chinese families out of Butte entirely. One relic of that community is the Pekin Noodle Parlor. Opened in 1909, it's the second oldest Chinese restaurant in the United States. I went there for lunch with a friend. Let's just say the food was certainly food.
The soup comes with crackers. They gave us crackers with the Chinese soup. I think it's gonna be tasty. Let's taste it without the crackers. It's good. It is very good. Not putting the crackers in the soup.
It wasn't the kind of Chinese food that West Coast palates are used to, but it wasn't bad.
Okay, I lied. The crackers dipped in the soup is actually hecka good.
That was not Chinese food. It was good, but it was not Chinese food.
I think there was some pork chow mein that I would classify as a great pork poutine.
Yeah, it was delicious food.
Yeah.
It just was not Chinese.
Yeah.
If you think of it as Montana food, it's delicious. The egg foo young, I don't know what it tasted like, but it was good, but it didn't taste like egg foo young.
What was the thing with was it cocktail sauce and
Yeah, it looked like, it tasted like a cross between cocktail sauce and wasabi.
Yeah, so
that's this place. Where was it? Over there. Pekin Chop Suey in Butte, Montana. Almost none of the staff were Chinese, and according to the 2020 census, less than 1% of Butte's population is of any type of Asian descent. The expulsion of Chinese residents made it easier for the Anaconda Company to crush organized labor. It allowed them to terrorize other immigrant groups and drive them from their homes in the pursuit of profit. This is Meterville in 1960, the thriving center of Butte's Italian community, a neighborhood where families built businesses, raised children, and put down roots. And this is Meterville today. It's gone, completely erased from the city, only surviving in the memories of residents and labeled on Google Maps, along with the neighboring Eastern European enclave of McQueen, all sacrificed for one thing: the Berkeley Pit, a mile-wide former open pit mine now filled with water so toxic that any living thing that touches it dies instantly. The destruction was documented in the 2018 book titled The City That Ate Itself: Butte, Montana and Its Expanding Berkeley Pit by Brian James Leach. In it, he writes, "The Berkeley Pit became so big that it altered, if not dominated, many insiders' and outsiders' perceptions, both of mining and the city itself. The Berkeley Pit first functioned as an icon of industrial power and technological sublimity. Then it became a symbol of corporate villainy." After decades of underground mining, the quality of the ores extracted from the Anaconda Company's mines in Butte decreased substantially. By the mid-20th century, they could no longer dig deeper profitably. In 1955, chasing higher-grade copper, the company switched to open-pit mining. It was promoted as safer and more economical than traditional methods. The result was the Berkeley Pit, from which over 1 billion tons of material were extracted, mostly copper, but also substantial amounts of silver and gold. As the pit expanded, Anaconda used government-backed eminent domain to seize much of East Butte. Entire neighborhoods, including Meterville and McQueen, were completely eliminated by the mid-1960s. Families were displaced. Some resettled elsewhere in town, others left for good. Mining operations continued into the 1970s, bringing much-needed jobs to the people of Butte and keeping the economy going. In 1977, Anaconda was purchased by and absorbed into the Atlantic Richfield Company, better known as ARCO. By this time, the federal government began passing strict environmental laws. And by 1980, ARCO shut down the smelter in the nearby town of Anaconda, leaving this gigantic smokestack unused to this day. I spent quite a bit of time in Anaconda recently, and you can see this smelter from miles away. In the modern day, it has been converted into a state park. The end of smelting and mining operations in Butte and Anaconda devastated the economy of the region. The final blow was made in 1982, when ARCO left the Berkeley Pit for good, shut down the pumps keeping groundwater out of the 1,700-foot deep hole in the ground, and it slowly became a gigantic lake. Toxic metals mixed with the water and created an ecological disaster. Right next to the densely populated city of Butte, it was declared a Superfund site in 1983, and ARCO was charged with the cleanup of the Berkeley Pit. and many other areas damaged by the Anaconda Company's mining operations in and around the cities of Butte and Anaconda. In 1996, 342 geese were found dead in the pit's water. ARCO denied that the birds died from the pit's toxicity, but it was later found that the birds' deaths were a direct result of the acidity of the water. A similar case happened in 2016 when thousands of birds landed in the pit and died from simply touching the surface. Since then, workers fire flares, gunshots, and loud noises to keep wildlife away. While this toxic site is a tragedy, the proud people of Butte are a resilient bunch. Seeing opportunity where others saw disaster, the Berkeley Pit is now a tourist attraction. As of this year, it costs $6 to get in, and you get to walk through a cool tunnel and see the lake safely from a distance at the viewing stand. This is the Berkeley Pit. It was the first Superfund site in the United States, and it is a toxic green lake. And you know what? It was good for business. What's your favorite part about this place?
I like that she's toxic. Like,
Like you?
like,
So the Berkeley Pit may be beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, it's deeply toxic and will kill you. Tell me what happened.
So I saw an old man in a baseball cap, and I thought he was the tour guide that we had spoken with. He also told us a lot of great history about
He did.
the pit.
What did he tell us?
He talked to us about the cultural diversity that was really prevalent within Butte, Montana. Talked about the industrial history, which is apparently a lot more than copper mining. And he also spoke about labor. We have Butte, Montana to thank for a 40-hour work week.
Yes.
Yes.
And that everybody was in a union,
And that everyone was in a union.
except for the mine owners,
The children.
including the children, the paper boys.
The paper boys engaging in child labor.
Yes. So they had unions for child labor. Butte was once a major city in its own right, larger than any town west of the Mississippi other than San Francisco. In the 1920s, its population peaked somewhere between 80 and 100,000. It could have become a premier American metropolis. Instead, decades of boom and bust gutted the city. By the late 20th century, the population collapsed to around 23,000, shrinking year after year until the 2020s. Today, Butte is a complex place, a city in recovery from decades of neglect and decline. But it's proud of its identity and history. It is home to one of the largest historic districts in the country, and residents work hard to preserve its architecture. Within Montana, it's quite different from some of the other major cities like Bozeman or Missoula. The people here are hardworking and scrappy, with a sense of humor about the place they call home. It feels quite similar to somewhere in the Rust Belt, like an old industrial city like Detroit or Cleveland, but distinctly Western. It was an honor to find myself in this little corner of Montana when I did. We met wonderful people, ate amazing food, and learned of a proud history that is not talked about enough. There's a reason that locals call it Butte America and not just Butte, Montana. Because in a way, Butte is America. It mirrors the greater story of America as a whole, where capitalist interests ripped apart communities in the pursuit of profit, one of environmental destruction, working class struggle, and ultimately overcoming adversity, one defined by both solidarity and division, where workers sometimes stood strong together and other times pushed their neighbors out, leaving them vulnerable to exploitation. While the mineral wealth and industrial power of Butte was instrumental in powering the modern world, it was often at the expense of its most vulnerable communities. I hope to see this city again someday and see it continue to exist as a thriving, vibrant community despite its struggles. There's no place in this world quite like Butte, the metropolis of Montana.